C.J. Huntley sent home, and Indiana State takes the lead in Louisville, 2-1.
What we didn't want to have happen has happened, and this could kill you.
I'm just impressed with his toughness, his perseverance, and it just, I don't know, he never gave up.
And we see these folks around us every day that have a major issue, and you wouldn't know it unless you knew the background, unless you knew the story. He took it in stride as well as, I mean, you couldn't. He was positive from the word go. He was going to get back from the word go. He was going to do what he could from the word go, and he didn't have a bad day mentally.
C.J. Huntley is on his way to Dallas to compete for his first ever Missouri Valley Conference Baseball Tournament Championship. His freshman year, in 2016, cut from the tournament travel roster. In 2017, that was a whole different fight, which was a year that began with so much promise.
Felt really good going into the season. I think it was a couple weekends before our season actually started when things started to click a little bit. And then I felt like I earned myself into a starting lineup at the beginning of the year. And then I started to struggle a little bit because I became started thinking too much again instead of just playing the game. And that led me to sitting a little bit. And then when I started to pick things back up towards conference is when I started to play more, but unfortunately the injury happened.
Initially, when he was having arm trouble, what we noticed was he was really starting to change his throwing mechanism. His mechanics were really changing, and usually guys when they start to adjust to that point, there's a major issue. We had no idea at the time what that issue was.
We were hitting BP in the indoor, and Clay came up to me and started making fun of my arm and just making a bunch of jokes, and that's when I was like, all right, this is it's actually pretty bad. And they ordered up an ultrasound because they wanted to make sure, they said the chances of it being a clot weren't good. Started looking at my chest and there was nothing, and then he looked at my arm. He put the thing they use for the ultrasounds on for maybe 2 seconds and goes, whoa, you have a huge blood clot.
I remember everything about that day. It was so out of the blue because I just thought he has an overworked sore arm. And I was working actually with a friend of his who said, I got a text and CJ's in the emergency room.
The next 2 weeks filled with hospital stays in Terre Haute and Kalamazoo. And the Huntley family was met with direct language of what could happen to CJ.
Within 24 hours, I got told that I had a huge blood clot in my arm, and then I got told I had blood clots in my lungs. I was told that there's no chance of me being able to return to the season, so I did the best I could to get home to Kalamazoo, and I got admitted into the hospital there I think I was there for 11 days. The first thing that they did is they went into my arm with a catheter and tried to break up the blood clot as much as possible. And then a couple days after that, once that was done, they took me off the drip for surgery because they told me the first rib, collarbone, and then a muscle there was pinching off that vein like a hose. Like it was literally being pinched off like a hose. So what the procedure was to get rid of the first rib and part of the muscle. The procedure took a while, actually. I think it took like 6 hours or something like that. And part of the reason was they took me off the drip and I had already formed a new clot. So they had to put another catheter in, break it up, and then do the procedure. So it took much longer than what they had hoped for.
A 6-hour-long surgery, sitting in a hospital for over 10 days. Yet the hardest part for Huntley was not saying farewell to a special group of seniors in Springfield, Missouri.
It took the life out of me just because I wanted to be with them so bad, and with all the seniors too. I made great relationships with all the seniors, and seeing them do well in the last game, even though we didn't get the win over Dallas Baptist, what hurt the most is not being able to say goodbye to the guys that I had played all year with. Dom was probably my best friend last year, and not being able to say goodbye hurt.
Summer was spent soft tossing in the yard and hopes of a return to the diamond in 2018. Yet that dark cloud of baseball being done for life was still hanging over C.J. Huntley as the 2018 season approached, and right before a trip to Charleston, South Carolina, a process that started 10 months prior, finally got a definite answer.
The week or so leading up to that, there were a couple of weeks there that we sat down one final time with the medical staff and the administration, because there was a lot going on. I mean, from the standpoint of liability that a university assumes, and from the medical staff and what they assume, and in terms of risk. So I was hopeful, but I still knew going into that final week of testing in February that it was 50-50 at best.
And they told me that they're gonna run basically a bunch of tests. And if I can pass all the tests, then I'm good to go, and then there'll be no issues. But if I can't pass one of the tests, if I fail just one of the tests, then I can't play. Leading up to the Citadel, I was playing baseball, not like with a bunch of pressure on me, but knowing that you could possibly never play the game again just puts a little bit extra stress on you. I remember very clearly, I was with, there's a doctor here called Dr. Cabus, and we had a meeting with him right before we had to leave for South Carolina. That's when they told me I was fully cleared to go.
It was awesome. He called up on FaceTime, so I got to see his reaction. He just left the doctor's office, and I don't know, I think we both just sat and smiled at each other for probably 10 minutes.
And I kept getting messages from my husband, we need to talk as soon as you can. And as soon as I could steal away, I called my husband, because by that time CJ had to go to practice. And so when I talked to Chad, it was too much for me to take. I think we had gotten so many bad test results that I wasn't acclimated to good news.
Huntley has a clean bill of health. His dance moves are on point too. And when the fight begins this week for a Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Championship, nothing compares to what he has already been through.
It shows what kind of person he is. He's not going to make any excuse about not being able to be out on the field. He's going to fight for, his passion, and that's baseball. He's played it since he was, knee-high to a grasshopper, and he's not going to until they tell him no.
You see a guy that is truly happy just to get a play, and it's not another college baseball game. You see the energy and excitement in him every day. Kind of like that little leaguer that's out there for the first time. I mean, for him, in a way, it was kind of like him back out there for the first time, and that's the energy that he brings every day.
Always be willing to fight, because not everything's given to everybody. Some people have just God-gifted ability and they get lucky, but for a lot of people, not everything's given to them, and it can be taken away just like that. I think this team could make a run at a regional, and that's what I think of when I'm in the hospital bed, is thinking of these moments coming up.